What's going on, guys? Nathan Barter here with Lambo Media, joined by special guest Tim Melville. He is a pitcher in the Colorado Rockies organization. Thank you for joining, Tim. How you doing?
Doing great. Hanging out. How are you doing today?
Not too bad. Just hanging in there with this quarantine. So first and foremost, you pitched for the Padres, the Reds, and the Twins, and last season you pitched for the Rockies. Is the hype about the altitude overhyped, or did you really notice a dramatic difference in ball flight?
Well, I think everybody who comes to Colorado understands that the air up there is a little bit thinner. So when you're playing an environment like that, the air, acts on the ball in different ways. There's been some suspicion that actually fastballs zip in towards the catcher faster. I haven't experienced that. But those are just some environmental things that you got to kind of be aware of when you're pitching. And, for me as a pitcher, I can make adjustments basically by where I'm locating most of my pitches. Sometimes you want to make sure your curveballs and your off speeds are starting low zone because they're not going to have enough air resistance to break more. And, with fastballs, I can locate those a little bit higher sometimes. And, just being aware of that and understanding that, physically you might change a little bit too. Some people might have a little trouble with the altitude, maybe a little dizziness, a little bit of lack of oxygen. So between each pitch, for me personally, it's like you got to focus on where your breath's at and, how you're feeling out there in the mound. Because if you start breathing fast, you're not going to have that much success. Stuff's going to start tightening up on you. That's kind of the feeling. And, it's kind of funny because you'll see teams come in for like a road trip and the guy will get like his first double or something like that. And you'll just see him just huffing and puffing on second base. And you're like, oh, poor guy. But usually in a few days you get used to it. And then over the course of a few starts, you get to see how your stuff plays out and you can make smart adjustments.
Right. So do you think people should be taking it to the extreme of saying Todd Helton shouldn't be inducted to the Hall of Fame because of the altitude? His statistics wouldn't have been the same if he didn't play for Colorado?
I haven't really heard any of that. Personally, I'm a big Todd Helton fan. He's actually one of the first major leaguers I ever met. If I could do like a quick story, like I was down in Tucson for a baseball tournament, and I think that was back when the Rockies had spring training there. I'm pretty sure it was Tucson. It might have been Phoenix, but I'm pretty sure it was Tucson. And we got invited to a game before the game. And I walk out, and it was Vinny Castilla and Todd Helton on the field. We got to like stand with them for the national anthem. And I was probably 15 or 16 at the time, probably the same age as you. I was tall. Like I was like 6'3", 6'4". Todd looks at me. He's like, bro, how old are you? I'm like, 15. He's like, dude, you're and Vinny said the same thing. Like, I'm a giant. And it's funny because I got to meet Vinny last year and I brought up the story. And he, of course, he has no idea who I was. But, they're just great guys. I'm not necessarily a big stats guy. I never really was. My dad was more of a stats guy than I was. Personally, for me, just saying how cool Todd Helton was, I think he should be in the Hall of Fame. He's a pretty cool guy. I like him. He's really nice. So, I'm not one of those like deep analytical, statistical guys, getting deep in the game. But he's cool. He's cool. He's in my book. Yeah,
that's funny. So to move on, I spoke to Yency Almonte a little bit about this. There's rumors about possible usage of electronic umpires in the foreseeable future. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think any changes to the game, in my opinion, have to be accepted by the fans. I think this game is all for the entertainment of the fans. And hey, man, if they're cool with some of the changes we're going to do, then I think that's kind of neat. There's some new technology coming out with everything. But ultimately, I think it just leaves it up to the fan. What's the entertainment value it's going to bring to the game? I think a majority of people like to see a little confrontation out there. a little arguing, a little back and forth,
Drama.
maybe with the ump or so. I think umpires have been, part of the game since the beginning, obviously. But there's some good ones and then there's some bad ones. And then I think people like to focus on the bad ones all the time and, like to blow them up and whatnot. But, hindsight's 2020. And, I think they tried it a little bit with the Arizona Fall League with like kind of having a hookup in the ear and stuff like that. But I haven't personally experienced it, so I can't really say how I'd feel about it. It'd be interesting. I think it would be a different aspect to the game to have that incorporated. There's already so much technology right now being incorporated. I think we're just still trying to navigate through these new times and new waters. But hey, man, I'm down to try anything, see how if it doesn't work. Time to get rid of it. So ultimately, the fans, if they love it, will keep it. So we'll see.
Yeah. I don't think they should make that change because, the umpires can't be perfect all the time. And like you said, the drama, some fans are there for the drama, so they like the confrontation.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So a news report just came out recently, I'm sure you've heard of it, is that the season could start as late as July. Do you think MLB should take that route, or do you think they should cancel the season and just prep for next season?
I haven't heard that report. Who wrote the report?
Oh, I saw it on social media. They said it could start as late as July 4th.
Okay. Well, I haven't heard anything officially from the commissioner's office or anybody affiliated with my team. So I take everything with a grain of salt. Right now there's a lot of rumors swirling around. So I think it's important to definitely check your sources and see where you're getting that information. I think everybody wants baseball to be back. And, that is everybody's wish who's a baseball fan, just to see, the game play out. But there's, some serious issues going on right now. And I think it's important for us to, think about the first responders, the nurses, the doctors who are out there battling this pandemic on the front lines. And I'd like to take a moment and just say, hey, and thank you to anybody who's listening, who's out there, battling this. Because, for me, I think those people are priority one, and then baseball comes second. Baseball will be back for sure. It's just a matter of when, and I don't think necessarily anybody knows that timeline yet. But things are starting to play out. You start to see governments and the governor and the president start to figure out this pandemic, and we're able to fight it a little differently. And then I think more information will come out when everything will start. But yeah, it's nice to wish. I wish it would start next week, but I think we're still gathering information on the situation, and there's still people battling it. So to keep those people safe is definitely my first priority for sure.
Right, I could definitely agree with that. So you have 48 innings pitched in the MLB. How did you plan on using that to your advantage pitching in the minor leagues this season?
There's so much you can learn at the two different levels, because it is a change when you get to the major leagues versus AAA. Obviously, the parks are bigger. There's more fans. There's kind of more of that distraction variable. But the players are great. Kind of like a funny thing I noticed when I remember one of the first major league hitters I ever faced was Nelson Cruz when he played with the Rangers back in the day. And you could see him like walk up to the plate, and he's got like kind of like swagger, and he couldn't care who he was facing. He had his game plan, and he knew what he needed to do to do some damage against you. That you experience at the major league level, because I think guys, not that they feel like that they've made it, but they're very comfortable. They've been playing at that level for a long time, versus minor leagues where you still have some of the younger guys grinding and working their way up, and they're a little bit on edge, so to speak, mentally. They might be trying too hard, versus a professional. He's got a little bit more confidence. He knows what he needs to do to have success. He's got his process. So you can see that difference, minor league and major league. And all that does is motivate me to work on my process. What can I focus on for me personally to get positive results? And, a lot of it for me is just working on my breath work. And then it's also visualization, what kind of pitch I want to throw next and how I want to execute it. That's the most important thing I can do now. And I think being in that major league atmosphere, you get tested. Your process, you've prepared for it.
Right. Right. Who's the toughest hitter you faced thus far?
Toughest hitter in the big leagues? Well, Pete Alonso hit a missile off of me last year. I got him out, and then he got me. But it was a pitch out over the plate. It was a bad pitch, but that guy can hit some balls. He's got a good swing. He's got a patient approach. He's pretty good. I grew up. I played with Freddie Freeman when I was a kid. In my opinion, he's one of the better hitters in the league that I faced, just over the long span. Pete Alonso had a great year last year, but Freeman's been doing it, in my opinion, since we were like 14.
Right.
Like, this kid he's got like a very similar swing to when he had when he was 14. He kind of figured it out early on. And so in my opinion, he's just a comfortable guy at the plate. Did
you learn from Freddie a lot growing up?
Yeah, I learned that I could never be that good. Good of a hitter. No, he was a stud, man. And he just had that confidence in himself, and he knew who he wanted to be as a player and a person, and he was just very comfortable, just being who he was at any moment. He'd be cracking jokes all the time. We'd be in a championship game. I played with him on Team USA when we were like 14, 15 years old. So we went down to Mexico. And like, no matter where we were playing down there, it didn't matter what field or stadium or the type of crowd, or if we were playing against Team Cuba, he was just still Freddie and just having a good time. And he's just a good, level-headed player. I think those are the better ones who could just, crack a joke at the most intense moment, the good vibes, and have fun out there. So.
Yeah. How'd you guys do in that USA tournament?
We lost in the championships against Cuba.
Oh, really?
So unfortunately we didn't win. It was in Monterrey, Mexico, probably like 2004, 2005 or something like that. But I think they went on next year to play against Cuba in Cuba, and I think they won that team. But I was injured. I had like shoulder tendonitis, so I didn't try out for Team USA that next year. But the year after that, I played again in Mexico with Team USA. That was my junior year of high school. And on that team, we had like Eric Hosmer, trying to think, Thad Weber, I think his name was, Kyle Lobstein, a few other pro guys around that team. So we had a good team, but unfortunately we didn't win that one either. So I didn't win gold. For the country. Pretty sad, but great experience nonetheless.
Let's talk a little bit about your junior year of high school. So you pitched a perfect game your junior year of high school, and you had a 0.89 ERA in your junior year. And then you went on to commit to UNC on a scholarship. How much do you think that season alone had an impact on your
recruiting process? I think it started pretty early for me. Freshman year, I had a really good train, pretty hard, so I'm about 90. And I think the velo is the biggest thing scouts see first, especially when you're younger, because they can kind of project you out. A combination of velocity and some control too, and I was able to keep the runs down in my high school season. But during the summer circuits, I played with the travel ball team that would always play against older kids. So I think that gave us a good test of where we needed to be and where we needed to develop. So I think that's led to my success in the high school ball, because essentially you're a freshman, but you're playing against senior players. But I'd already been doing that with travel ball in middle school. I played a year up, 2 up, 3 up sometimes in various tournaments. So I think it's just continuing to push yourself like that led to the season that I had, and had some success.
Right. So like I said earlier, you played with multiple MLB organizations. How is that transition from organization to organization mentally?
I think you need to really maintain your own process outside the organization sometimes. I don't think anybody wants to move around as much as I did. But you meet a lot of people along the way. So I think it's important for you to figure out what you want to do and how you want to work out and how you want to have your throwing program go, so that when you do get to a new team or a new organization, you can present to them, team, this is what's worked for me. I'm open to any suggestions. I'm open to your guys' advice, but this is where I see myself as a pitcher. And usually teams will have confidence in you if you lay out your ground plan like that. But if you don't have a plan too, those guys have seen a lot of players, so they'll suggest things to you. Hey, I think you should do this, you should do that. And sometimes it can get a little bit confusing, but if you're confident in who you want to be as a player, I think teams ultimately are there to help you at the end of the day get wins and be successful. So it's important to listen to them, but at the same time, you got to listen to yourself. But a little advice when like moving team to team, someone tells a joke on one team, you can like steal that joke and like bring it to another team. Like no one's ever heard of it. And then you're like the funniest guy there. It's like the best thing ever. So
that's funny. So to wrap it up, what were your main goals for this 2020 season, and where did you see yourself finishing up the season?
Was get healthy. I had a rib injury my start of last year to heal up, so I was still healing up from that rib injury in spring training this year. As far as like pitching, I really want to develop a better changeup. I've been looking at some changeups this offseason. I really like Strasburg as a great one, and just trying to figure out like pitch grips and stuff like that using Rapsodo and slow motion camera, I think were my main focus. And I've been able to do that essentially, not even pitching. So I kind of have like an idea when I do start pitching up, whenever they, start the season up, work to that a little bit. So I'm still like being able to work on stuff, even though I'm not playing baseball. But yeah, I think the ultimate goal is like being at the big leagues and winning a championship and being in a World Series. So, that's kind of my goal every year, no matter how far away, have a good process, but your end results, have them as high as you can make them, because I think that'll ultimately, guide your process. You can kind of almost reverse engineer some certain things. What's it going to take for me to be there individually and as a team? And, you look at aspects of how I can influence the clubhouse every day, day in, day out to, bring that winning mentality, that winning environment that will ultimately allow a championship to happen. So, you kind of dwell on those thoughts throughout the off season and, hopefully bring those into season and have some good conversations with teammates and get everybody on the same page and, hopefully win a championship that way.
Right. You mentioned your rib injury. How does the rib feel now?
I'm pretty good. I feel really healed. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to get MRI recently because of everything that's going on. But I've had a lot of time to heal, so I feel very confident in it.
Right. So that wraps up all my questions. I thank you for joining and taking the time out of your day. Stay safe and healthy.
Yeah. Thank you, Nathan. Appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you.